Oh, heavens, no! Do you have any idea what that does to your digestive system? Good thing I brought some nice, healthy vegetables.
Welcome back to Privy. Privy is a podcast about bathrooms recorded here in my home bathroom. I am Hunter Hoover, your host from the throne of doom, which has been really what mine has been the last few days. Little bathroom check up here at the top. I'm on a weird solid stool kick. It's not normal for me. Generally, it's loosey-goosey, but it's been very nugget centric. And so we're just learning, we're learning how to interact in that space. I produced what I like to call a depth charge 2 today, where you have the tiny rabbit droppings and it splashes and hits you in the bungholio. I also had the other morning what I like to call a 2 burrito and cheeseburger emergency drop. And so if you can probably put together what's going on there. But yeah, those will make for a rough morning after. And the other thing, and this is just wild, today at the day of recording, it's the first day of fall. So happy fall, it's official. For those of you that busted out your fall decor and your pumpkin spice BS, you did it too early. Now you may proceed. My wife has made a delicious loaf of pumpkin chocolate chip bread. And so I'm flying pretty high with those. I'm just going to let you know. Really, fall for me, it just means pumpkin chocolate chip season. And it is the slow burn leading up to Christmas. So strap in, y'all, because it's going to be a fun ride. Also, I found it at long last after about a month of searching moderately diligently. I did, in fact, find and locate and have consumed Monster Mash cereal. So this is not a cereal review podcast. We're not going to do that. That already exists, but it's good. Also, my tirade, I will use this podcast as a platform to raise a common grievance that I bring forth every year against what should rightfully be called the Transylvania twist. Now, it has been mistakenly called the Monster Mash for many years, decades even. And I'm here again this year. This episode of Privy will be my Hunter's formal launch of the 2021 Transylvania Twist takeover. So stay tuned. Check out. We got to make some changes. But it's the end of September, and the day that this podcast actually releases and comes out, this episode, it's National Comic Book Day. If you didn't know that, today, the day this episode comes out, is National Comic Book Day. And comic books were usually assumed to be related to superheroes. But originally, when the first comic books were being made in America, that's where I'm at right now, it was a book, this original comic, the OG comic, was a book called The Adventures of Mr. Obadiah Oldbuck. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that this was probably some sort of propaganda. It was made in the late 1800s, and this is not going to be like your Batmans and your Spider-Man comics. But then again, neither is what we are talking about this week on Privy. We're just going to just splash right on in. In 2002, a little show debuted on Cartoon Network. It featured a group of kids who had a hideout in a treehouse, and the series was actually the result of viewer polls that Cartoon Network put out. Cartoon Network did this program and this I don't really know, this agenda, I guess, called The Big Pick. The Big Pick was a 53-hour marathon in which the network of cartoons allowed viewers to pick which cartoon pilots would debut in the following years. This is probably one of the most broken and, I'm not trying to speak ill of the Cartoon Network, but this seems like a dangerous approach, putting your programming in the hands of children and teens. It seems like a bad idea, and it's a reminder that democracy has its limits. That's what we've learned here. The show voted in was about a group of kid operatives who act as spies and secret agents while fighting crimes against being a kid. This show was codename Kids Next Door, or KND for the hip and cool. And honestly, the show was great. I remember watching this show growing up. Nobody, I think, ever called it Codename Kids Next Door. It was just called Kids Next Door. And it had just enough, slights to the grown-ups in the show, who are often portrayed as these, power-hungry corporate bosses. And also their, teenage siblings and others show up as villains in the show. And it's a really interesting look at what it means to be a kid, is really what Codename Kids Next Door is trying to capture. Kids Next Door was only on the air for 6 years. And it was, like I said, it was a phenomenal show. I say was because the last murmurings about the show came in 2016 when there was a spin-off show proposed, but it did not get the green light. 2016 rolls around, the show's pushing 15 years old, and somebody's like, hey, we should make a spin-off. Now, here's what I'm going to say. If they had only waited just a little bit, because nowadays, this is prime territory. You can't be a show from the 90s, early 2000s without getting some weird remake. So maybe they should try this again, because I guarantee you there is a streaming service just itching to toss some reboot 90s and early 2000s cartoon into their lineup to just hook those viewers. Yeah. I guarantee, bring back Kids Next Door in the year 2021, 2022 of our Lord, and I bet you any money there's a streaming service that'll pick that noise up quicker than you can say Codename Kids Next Door, and people will watch it. It would be a delight. You know what would be a sweet spin? Now that I'm just rambling, we're not getting to the potty talk yet. Now that I'm just rambling, you know what would be a wild spin for that show is if it kind of like Rugrats All Grown Up, but if it tracked these characters, numbers 1 through 5, when now they are this many years removed. Because the last episode aired in 2018, or 2008, I'm sorry. And so many of this is 13 years later. These are not kids anymore. These are not children. And so if it was now them as the adults, what sort of fun antics and things could we play with in that? Hey, Cartoon Network, TM, September 20, it's your IP, so I'm not going to TM it, but the idea is here. Yeah. It was, so Kids Next Door was an excellent show, but it was also a comic book. And remember, today, the day this episode comes out, is National Comic Book Day, in case you forgot. We have to connect these dots because Hunter is stretching this time. And the Kids Next Door comic book, which now you can kind of get a feel for it by being almost a 23-year-old cartoon. Gosh, I'm old. I was in second grade when this show came out originally. What the heck? And I was in middle school when it ended? That's just wild to think. Anyway, Kids Next Door had many issues of a comic book, including one that featured a crossover between Kids Next Door, Powerpuff Girls, Dexter's Lab, Ben 10, and other Cartoon Network shows. That comic sounds either like a very cool trip down memory lane, and it's like Super Smash Bros. Or the Marvel's Avengers, except for late 90s, early 2000s Cartoon Network characters. And it sounds either like a hot mess or a very cool trip. Kids Next Door also had a number of comic strips featured in a Spanish newspaper wherein, like, think Garfield in its style, but the kids are fighting crimes against being a kid, like flossing your teeth and eating your vegetables. Things that, now that I think about it, when I'm watching this show, I was like, yeah, forget these fools. Forget that broccoli. Get that green noise straight out of here. And now I'm looking at it, I'm like, if this dang child could just please just eat the leafy green thing, it will make them live longer. It will make them more powerful. It will, as my son often puts it, it will give me more power. Eat your leafy greens. And I think in saying that, I just became a Kids Next Door villain. Shoot. The other reason that we are talking Kids Next Door, because, a lot of times there's these moments where we get into it here, and we're like, for goodness sakes, this is Privy, dang it. When is he going to start talking about poop and farts in the bathroom and flushing the toilet? Well, we're getting there because the other reason we're talking about this is when you try and find, so it's National Comic Book Day. And so I went out and I was like, oh man, I could do a sweet, I could talk about all the super cool, bathroom related superheroes and supervillains, and it'd be super cool. And here's the thing. Those aren't we're in short supply of bathroom related supervillains and superheroes. It's a pretty dry offering. There ain't nobody turning up out here. So here's the deal. Some supervillains and superheroes use stink, and they use various ways to administer that stink to their opponents. And that's too general, because stink does not narrow that down to the stink that is produced from your booty hole. Some superheroes, Kids Next Door, though, the reason we are chatting about KND, has what is both one of the lamest and most toilet-related villains of all time, the Toiletnator. The Toiletnator. Remember, early 2000s kids programming. The Toiletnator is, for lack of a better way of saying it, a wuss. He is a very, very weak villain, and his alter ego is Lou Pottingsworth. So Lou as in the toilet, and Pottingsworth. See, there's fun wordplay in his name, and that's why we're here. The Toiletnator is actually a running gag of the show, in that the kids themselves they couldn't give a rip about this dude. In most cases, that the kids and Evil Adult Industries Incorporated, the evil organization that the kids are fighting against, often views the Toiletnator as a laughingstock to be ignored or mitigated or sent out so he is out of the battle, so that way he's not messing everything up. The Toiletnator. High caliber supervillain. His powers, as stated, are the power to, quote, control toilets, whatever that means, and can shoot toilet paper from his arms. And if I remember the show, there's times where he can like make the water like spray up and out of the toilet. And if my current employer if one of my employers could chime in on anything, it's this: you don't want your toilet to go in reverse. More on that later. But he has the power to control toilets and can shoot toilet paper from his arms. The toilet paper from his arms, I remember, he often uses that as a like wrap 'em up tool. He can shoot it out and it like mummy wraps his opponents. So not terrible. But I don't know if you've ever messed with toilet paper. It takes like nun strength to get through that stuff. It's literally the thinnest paper you could find. Which is wild that that's what we use to remove the poop from our butt with just mere millimeters between our finger. And this maybe would have been a power that could have come in handy a couple years ago during the great toilet paper panic, you know what I'm saying? But I digress. The Toiletnator is the saddest type of villain in that he exists. The Toiletnator exists, and he does what he does. He seeks to destroy Kids Next Door because he wants the approval of Mr. Boss, the leader and like the elder of Evil Adult Industries Incorporated. He also, I should say, and this is where I will probably draw some fire from the Kids Next Door fans and community, but in my opinion, he doesn't make much sense to the world other than being a joke in and of itself. And if that's his reason for existing, I'm all on board. Like, I'm all good with a potty joke and a literally like living embodiment of a bathroom joke. I'm cool with that. But he doesn't make much sense to the world. Because most of the villains and most of the bad guys in Kids Next Door they go along with the things that we would expect a kid to hate. Like broccoli and asparagus and flossing and no recess and being grounded and spanking. And there's all these different heroes that capture these things that kids view as negative in their lives, and they put them as these like villains for the Kids Next Door to defeat. But the Toiletnator, just what does he stand for? Toilets? Like he's just a human embodiment of a toilet gag. Like Mr. Boss doesn't even like him. He doesn't have the same affection because Mr. Boss is often seen like trying to get this dude out of the way. Get him out of the way. Like I said, it's kind of sad. The Toiletnator, and this is why like when I say, hey, we need to do better out here with these toilet-related superheroes. But so what makes this guy tick? Like, how does Lou Pottingsworth get to be the Toiletnator? Like, what's a guy got to do? You know, Spider-Man got bit by a spider and Batman had trauma. So, like, how do you get to be the Toiletnator? In one Kids Next Door comic called Operation Histories, and every one of their episodes, well, most of their episodes, are named Operation something, and the word stands for something. It's like an acronym. We get the Toiletnator's origin story, as well as his alter ego. Now, he used to be an executive at Evil Adult Industries Incorporated, but when the kids attacked the building site for the producing a new vegetable, asparagus, Lou Pottingsworth in that attack was trapped inside of a porta potty where he hid for safety. It was knocked over during the fight and then buried under the rubble of this destroyed situation. And the comic book states that Lou Pottingsworth had to survive on nothing but urinal cakes, which, man, that's another topic for another day, urinal cakes. Why are they called cake? Why? They already look like candy, big candy, to little kids. And then they hear their parents say, hey, yeah, that's a urinal cake. Guess what? You know there's children that have tried. Gosh. He's stuck inside this porta potty and he's feasting on these urinal cakes. Then, whether actually in an act of divine intervention or in Pottingworth's mind due to, again, sustaining himself on urinal cakes for so long, he is visited by a toilet deity who bestows him with the powers of toilets. So after being visited by this toilet being and being given the power of toilets, he used his new powers to punish kids who wrote on the bathroom wall. Ahaha. Now we're getting to the bottom of it. See, this is the thing. Now we have an answer. What is his deal? Why is he a bathroom-related Kids Next Door here, or villain? And this is why. Because he used to punish kids who wrote on the bathroom wall, who vandalized the bathroom, who would throw TP all over the place to gag each other. And, God forbid, they forgot to flush. Now, here's the thing. Y'all got to be flushing out here. You just got to flush the toilet. I don't know how to say it any other way, but like, yeah, you just got to flush it. Just do it. It's easy. Don't forget to flush. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's for real right now. He started out Lou Pottingsworth in the television show before he was given his backstory in the comics. He started as what would be as it was supposed to be a one-off joke. It was supposed to be this kind of throwaway gag with this toilet supervillain, but then he stuck around because remember, Kids Next Door came about because the children voted on it. They said, "We want that show with the I can't even say teens, the kids who are fighting adults for no vegetables and shorter school days, no school at all." He started as a gag in this show and stuck around because the same kids that said, "We want Kids Next Door," they said, "We want the Toiletnator." They liked him. They thought he was ridiculous, but they liked him. They liked the toilet-based not-so-supervillain. You know, somebody has to be the foil. Somebody has to be the one who is the jester and takes the fall. And the Toiletnator is that guy. He is the ridiculous, stupid villain that the Kids Next Door needed, that people wanted to stick around. And he went from being a one-off joke to a regular villain that has a lot of screen time. D. Bradley Baker voices the Toiletnator. And I want to note here, until I began to look at this, I didn't really know who Mr. Baker was. But D. Bradley Baker voices characters from over 443 different shows or movies, some of which, and these are just a few, include all of the Bad Batch 5 from Disney's Bad Batch. Yep, all of them. All 5 of the Bad Batch. He voices them all. Diogi from Milo Murphy's Law. Perry the Platypus. Perry, what a guy. Like, my son or daughter has a Perry the Platypus that when I click it, it makes the Perry the Platypus noise. That was probably D. Bradley Baker that came up with that. I love Perry the Platypus. I had no idea that Toiletnator and Perry the Platypus were related to this, but he also plays Daffy Duck in Space Jam. Like, the dude has the chops. He is a voice actor extraordinaire, and he was tasked with bringing the Toiletnator. The guy behind all of those characters and many more voiced the Toiletnator in Kids Next Door. Some of those are more higher caliber roles than others, but here's the deal. He voiced the Toiletnator. It's like, you get it? It's like the Terminator. Did I explain that? it's wild to think that this one-off character was voiced by this dude that has like a pretty astounding list of things that he has done as far as voice acting. So the thing is, though, on Comic Book Day, we're kind of forced to talk about the Toiletnator, because here's the thing that there ain't many superheroes talk about, and like that ain't right. There needs to be a better bathroom-related superhero, a higher caliber bathroom-related superhero. Captain Crapper, the Amazing Lou, the Porcelain Maniac, something. As far as powers, the power to manipulate someone's bowels. Like, just use your brain space with me for just a minute. Imagine the Joker. We all know him. He's doing his whole thing. You want to see a magic trick? He's doing that whole, and he's doing the thing with the bus, and he's got to choose between the bus full of people, all that stuff. And then all of a sudden, like when he's doing his whole bit, he's like, you want to know how I got these scars? Oh, bleep, I have to go. And he just bum rushes out of the scene holding his butt. Because who's that standing behind Batman? It's the brown streak. And the brown streak has made the Joker almost flat soil himself. Fart propulsion, constipation powers. There's plenty of untapped territory here. And as far as powers, there's a lot to work on. And so if you have other ideas for a bathroom-related superhero, share it. Tag the show at Privycast. And if you're brave, use the hashtag Toilet Hero. Hashtag Toilet Hero. I want to see what's out there. If you know of a toilet superhero that I was unable to find, and it's probably out there. I probably should put this call out there. But find it and send it to me. I want to see this stuff. Happy National Comic Book Day, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. This brings us to the end of another episode of Privy. We would love for you to connect with us at social media at Privycast on all social media. And you can send us an email, privycast@gmail.com. We would love to get those emails. Leave us a review. The 5-star rating is our favorite. And if you leave us a review, write something in there, we'll try to read that on the show. We're going to start reading more reviews as those come in. So we would love for you to do so. We would like to thank Kevin MacLeod for the use of Barroom Ballet as our intro and outro music. You can find Kevin's music at incompetech.org, and he's licensed under Creative Commons License Attribution 4.0. Thanks, Kevin. This has been another episode of Privy. Thank you so much for joining us. And now, as always, don't forget to flush.